My name is Celeste Hartley, and I'm 34 years old. 3 years ago, I believed I had married into the kind of family people envy. The kind with holiday cards that look professionally staged. The kind where everyone smiles too perfectly. I thought I had won the family lottery. God, I had no idea I had walked straight into a psychological war. The first time I met Pamela Harrison, my future mother-in-law, she looked like the definition of elegance. Perfectly styled silver hair, pearl earrings, a voice smooth enough to make you believe every word she said was wisdom. She hugged me lightly and said with a warm smile, "Ethan speaks so highly of you, Celeste. I'm thrilled my youngest son finally found someone suitable." At the time, I didn't notice the pause before the word suitable. I was too busy feeling relieved. Because Ethan Harrison wasn't just any man. He was brilliant, kind, ambitious, and I loved him in that wholehearted, reckless way you love someone when you still believe love fixes everything. Pamela had 4 sons, David, Anthony, Christopher, and Ethan. The youngest, her favorite. At least, that's what everyone quietly implied. In the beginning, Pamela seemed supportive. She complimented my cooking. She praised my home. She brought thoughtful gifts when she visited. But looking back now, the red flags were there from the very beginning. They just came disguised as politeness. Little pinpricks, barely noticeable at first. "Oh dear," Pamela said one evening while tasting my pasta sauce. "Store-bought? I always make mine from scratch." She said it gently, with a sympathetic smile, like she was helping me improve. Another time she stood in my living room, examining the toys scattered across the rug where my daughter Ava had been playing. "When I was raising my boys," she said thoughtfully, "we never had toys cluttering the house like this." Her eyes moved slowly across the room, not angry, just disappointed. That tone was far more effective. Then came the fashion critiques. "That dress is rather youthful for a mother, don't you think?" And the gifts. Oh, the gifts. Pamela never gave anything directly insulting. Instead, she brought parenting books, cleaning supplies, cookbooks with sticky notes marking easy recipes for busy mothers. Every gift came with a gentle smile and a subtle reminder that she thought I wasn't good enough. Whenever I tried to talk to Ethan about it, he would laugh softly and kiss my forehead. "That's just Mom," he'd say. "She's old-fashioned." Maybe. But I started noticing things Ethan didn't, like the way Pamela rearranged my spice rack during visits. She claimed it was more efficient, or the way she threw away Ava's crayon drawings from the refrigerator. "Paper clutter attracts dust," she explained. The worst part wasn't how she treated me. It was how she treated my children. Pamela loved to compare. "Grandma's cookies taste better," she'd tell Ava. "Because Grandma uses real ingredients, not those boxed mixes Mommy buys." She'd slip Oliver candy right before dinner, then sit back calmly as I dealt with his sugar meltdown. "My boys never behaved this way," she'd remark thoughtfully. "Perhaps he needs more structure." The first time I truly confronted her was at Ava's 6th birthday party. Ava had spent months planning it. Princess decorations, pink and gold balloons, a castle-shaped cake I spent 2 days baking. Everything was perfect until Pamela arrived, 2 hours early, holding a plain chocolate sheet cake from the grocery store. "Children shouldn't have all that artificial coloring," she announced. She placed the cake right in the center of the table. "This is much healthier." I stared at her. "I already made Ava a cake." Pamela smiled sweetly. "Well, we'll have both then." She leaned closer and whispered just loud enough for nearby parents to hear. "Let the children choose which one looks more appetizing." I watched Ava's face fall. It was the first time I felt something cold and dangerous settle inside my chest. But the real problem started when Ethan got his promotion at Morrison & Associates. Senior partner, more money, more travel, longer hours, and suddenly, Pamela was around all the time. Ethan had given her a spare key years ago, for emergencies, he said. But Pamela treated it like an invitation. One Tuesday morning, she walked straight into our bedroom while I was changing. "Pamela," I snapped, grabbing a robe. "You can't just walk in here." She laughed, a sharp sound. "Please, dear, nothing I haven't seen before." She examined herself in the dresser mirror. "Besides," she added casually, "this house belongs to my son." Her reflection met mine. This is my home too. I stared at her. I need privacy. Pamela turned slowly. Oh, Celeste. Her voice dropped to a soft, almost pitying tone. Eric pays the mortgage. Then she smiled. And Eric came from my body. She tilted her head. You're just temporary. That night, I begged Ethan to change the locks. He looked exhausted. Babe, she's just trying to help. Help. The word made my stomach twist. A few weeks later, Ethan's sister-in-law Carmen met me at Riverside Park while our kids played. She watched Pamela from across the playground. She did this to me too, Carmen said quietly. When David and I first got married. What changed? I asked. Carmen pushed her daughter gently on the swing. I got pregnant with our third baby. She looked at me. And David finally saw the truth. Her voice grew serious. But it took years, Celeste. Then she gave me the best advice anyone had given me. Document everything. So I did. I started writing everything down. Every comment. Every visit. Every boundary Pamela crossed. And when I looked back at those entries weeks later, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't random behavior. It was systematic, strategic, control. And the moment that proved it was coming sooner than I expected, because the Harrison family reunion was about to happen at my house, and Pamela Harrison had already decided who would be in charge. The morning of the Harrison family reunion started before the sun was fully up. I know that because when the doorbell rang, the sky outside my kitchen window was still a pale gray, 6 a.m. The party wasn't supposed to begin until noon. I already knew who it was. I opened the door and found Pamela Harrison standing on the porch like a general arriving to inspect a battlefield. Behind her were 3 enormous insulated grocery bags, Whole Foods. Dean and DeLuca, the kind of stores where everything costs twice as much simply because the label looks elegant. Good morning, Celeste, she said brightly, stepping inside before I could answer. I thought you might need assistance. She swept past me and placed the bags on the kitchen counter. Pamela, the reunion doesn't start for 6 hours. Yes, dear, she said, already unpacking ingredients, which is exactly why I came early. Out came vacuum-sealed beef tenderloin, fresh lobster tails, artisan cheeses wrapped in wax paper, a jar of black truffle paste that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My stomach sank. I've already planned the menu, I said carefully. Pamela paused. Then she looked at the preparation I had laid out. Hot dogs, hamburgers, fresh corn, watermelon. Exactly the kind of food kids and adults actually enjoy at a summer reunion. Her lips tightened almost imperceptibly. Hot dogs, she said. Her tone made the word sound like an insult. How pedestrian. They're family favorites, I replied. Pamela sighed softly. The Harrison family deserves something a little more refined. She began clearing space on the counter. I brought proper ingredients. My jaw tightened. The children specifically requested. The children, Pamela interrupted smoothly, need to develop proper taste. Then why don't you focus on getting them presentable? I'll handle the cooking. Just like my kitchen was no longer mine. Pamela moved with calm efficiency. Within minutes, she had taken over every surface. Pots simmered. Her knives chopped vegetables with precise rhythm. I stood there uselessly for a moment before realizing I had been completely displaced. Mommy? Ava stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Her curly hair was a sleepy mess. Yes, sweetheart. Pamela glanced over her shoulder. Oh, good. You're awake. Her smile sharpened slightly. Go get dressed, darling. We have guests coming today. Oliver shuffled in behind his sister, dragging his stuffed dinosaur. Are we swimming later? I knelt down beside them. Go brush your teeth first. They ran off. Behind me, Pamela began humming softly as she sautéed garlic, like she was the hostess of the day. By the time noon arrived, the house looked like something from a magazine, but not. Pamela had transformed the kitchen into a gourmet display. Beef tenderloin sliced perfectly, lobster salad arranged in delicate bowls, a spread of cheeses that looked like it belonged in a luxury restaurant. Every dish plated beautifully, and every time someone arrived, Pamela made sure they understood exactly who was responsible. Oh, Celeste tried, she said sweetly when Aunt Patricia complimented the food. But I couldn't let the family starve on hot dogs. The relatives laughed politely. I forced a smile. More cars arrived. David and Carmen, Anthony and his wife Rachel, Christopher with his stepchildren. Soon the house filled with laughter. Kids ran through the backyard toward the pool. Music played softly through the speakers. From the outside, it probably looked like the perfect family reunion. Inside, I felt like a guest in my own home. Pamela stood in the center of the kitchen, accepting praise like a queen holding court. "This truffle pasta salad is divine," Aunt Patricia said. Pamela gave a modest shrug. "Oh, just something simple." Then she glanced toward me. "Celeste is fortunate to have help. Entertaining a group this size can overwhelm inexperienced hosts." The comment landed softly, but it landed. I kept pouring drinks, refilling plates, smiling. Inside, I was boiling. By 2 o'clock, the backyard had turned into chaos. Children splashed in the pool. Adults sat around patio tables drinking lemonade and iced tea. I walked through the house carrying a tray of empty glasses when something suddenly felt wrong. Quiet. Too quiet. I hadn't seen Ava or Oliver in a while. They weren't in the family room watching cartoons. I checked. Empty. The base empty. A cold, primal fear started creeping up my spine. Ava? No answer. Oliver? Still, my heart began racing. I walked. "Has anyone seen Ava and Oliver?" No one looked up. I tried again, louder. This time Pamela answered, but she was plating slices of salmon with delicate care. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I handled the situation. Ice flooded my veins. Pamela turned to face me. "They need a timeout where?" The tray slipped from my hands and shattered on the tile floor. "What?" "They were shouting and running through the kitchen," Pamela said, clearly annoyed by my reaction. "Children." My pulse roared in my ears. "You put them in the laundry room?" "Yes." My mind raced. "Where are they now?" Pamela picked up another plate. "They're still there, obviously." My body was already moving. I ran down the hallway. The door to the laundry room wouldn't open. I pulled harder. Nothing. Then I saw it. My heart stopped. The heavy oak cabinet from the hallway had been dragged directly in front of the door. That cabinet took 2 or 3 adults to move. My voice exploded from my chest. "Ethan!" Footsteps pounded behind me. "What's wrong?" "She locked them in here." I slammed my fists against the door. "Ava! Oliver!" For a moment there was silence. Then I heard it. A small voice. Oliver, trying to be brave. "It's okay, Ava. Mommy will find us." And my daughter's quiet sobbing. Dark. They were trapped in the dark. "Move this thing," I screamed. Ethan and David rushed forward. The cabinet scraped loudly across the floor as they pushed it aside. I clawed at the door handle. When the door finally swung open, my children were curled together on the floor behind the washing machine. Ava's face was red from crying. Oliver wrapped his arms around her protectively. The room had no windows, and the light switch was outside. They had been trapped in complete darkness. "Mommy!" Ava sobbed. She threw herself into my arms. Grandma said we were bad. Something inside me shattered, and then hardened into something far more dangerous. I stood up slowly, my children clinging to me, and walked back toward the kitchen, where Pamela Harrison was calmly explaining to relatives the discipline she had just administered. She didn't even look surprised when I entered. "You locked my children in the laundry room," I said. My voice echoed through the silent kitchen. Pamela adjusted her pearl necklace. They were being disruptive. 20 people were watching us now. Every conversation had stopped. I took a step closer. "They're 5 and 7 years old." Pamela's smile returned. "Someone had to teach them proper behavior, since you clearly refused to." My hands began to shake, but my voice stayed steady. "You barricaded the door." Pamela shrugged lightly. "Don't be so melodramatic, Celeste." Then she leaned forward slightly. "I raised 4 successful sons." Her eyes glittered. "A little discipline never hurt anyone." The entire room held its breath, because everyone understood something in that moment. This wasn't just an argument anymore. This was war. And the next person to speak would decide everything. My eyes slowly turned toward Ethan. The kitchen had gone so quiet, I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. 20 pairs of eyes shifted between Pamela and me, but my gaze never moved from Ethan. This was the moment that would define our entire marriage. For years, every conflict with Pamela had ended the same way. A quiet apology, a compromise, a promise from Ethan that he would talk to her. And then nothing changed. But this time was different. This time, our children were involved. I was still holding Ava, her small arms wrapped around my neck. Oliver clung to Ethan's leg, his face pale from the shock of being trapped in the dark. "Ethan," I said quietly. My voice trembled despite my effort to stay calm. She locked them in a room. Pamela crossed her arms. "They were shouting and running around like wild animals," she said smoothly. "I simply gave them a timeout." "A timeout?" My voice cracked. "You barricaded the door." Pamela rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Celeste, stop exaggerating." Her gaze shifted toward the relatives watching us. "You see what I have to deal with?" She gestured toward me as though I were a misbehaving teenager. Overly emotional mothers are the worst thing that can happen to children. A few relatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. They were waiting for Ethan. I felt Ava trembling against me. "Mommy," she whispered. It was so dark. My throat tightened. I kissed her hair and then looked back at Ethan. "Tell her to leave." The words hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament. Pamela scoffed. "Eric," she said sharply, "control your wife." Ethan didn't move. He was staring at the laundry room door down the hallway. His jaw slowly tightened. "Mom," he said quietly. Pamela straightened slightly. "Yes?" "You locked my children in a room." Her expression hardened. "I disciplined them." "You blocked the door. They would have come out if they behaved. They're 5 and 7. Pamela's voice grew impatient. "Oh, honestly, Ethan, don't tell me you're siding with this hysteria." The word "this" landed like a slap. Ethan lifted his head. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Cold. Controlled. "Mom, you need to leave." Pamela blinked. The entire room seemed to freeze. "Excuse me?" "You locked my children in a room," Ethan repeated slowly. They were crying in the dark. Pamela's face flushed red. "I was teaching them respect." "That's not respect," Ethan said. His voice grew louder. "That's abuse." Gasps rippled through the kitchen. Pamela stared at him like he had just spoken a foreign language. "I cannot believe this," she whispered. She turned toward the relatives. "Listen to him. After everything I've done for this family." Her eyes snapped back to me. "She's poisoning you against me." "Stop," Ethan said. Pamela ignored him. "She's always been jealous of our relationship." "Stop. You used to respect me." "Stop." Pamela's voice rose. "She's manipulating you." "Get out." The word exploded through the kitchen. Every conversation in the backyard stopped. Pamela's mouth fell open. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not her husband. Not her sons. Not anyone. For a moment, she looked almost fragile. Then the anger returned. "I am your mother, and I am their father," Ethan said. He pulled Oliver into his arms. "You do not lock my children in a room." Pamela's face twisted with disbelief. "I was helping. You terrified them. They needed discipline. They needed safety." The silence was suffocating. Pamela's eyes flicked around the room, searching, looking for someone to support her, but no one moved. Even Aunt Patricia stared down at the floor. Pamela slowly picked up her purse from the counter. Her movements were deliberate, dignified. The performance of a wounded martyr. "Fine," she said coldly. "If that's how you want it." She looked directly at Ethan. "You'll regret choosing her over your own mother." Then she turned toward me. Her eyes were sharp with hatred. "You've ruined this family." I didn't answer. I simply stood there holding my children. Pamela walked toward the door. But before leaving, she paused. Her gaze moved slowly across the relatives, making sure every single person witnessed the moment. "I hope you're all satisfied," she said quietly, "with the way this woman has turned my son against me." Then she walked out. The front door slammed behind her. And just like that, the reunion was over. No one knew what to say. David cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, maybe we should... Yeah, Anthony muttered. Probably time to go. Within 20 minutes, the house was empty. Cars pulled away from the driveway. Relatives avoided eye contact as they left. The beautiful food Pamela had prepared sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Carmen was the last to leave. She squeezed my shoulder gently. You did the right thing, she whispered. Then she followed David outside. The house fell silent again. Ethan leaned against the counter, rubbing his temples. Ava and Oliver sat on the couch watching cartoons, still unusually quiet. You okay? I asked softly. Ethan let out a long breath. I should have stopped her years ago. I didn't respond, because the truth was, I had thought the same thing. But what neither of us realized at the time was that kicking Pamela out of our house wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Pamela Harrison did not accept defeat. She launched a campaign that would have impressed military strategists. The phone calls started that very night. At first, they were constant. Voicemail after voicemail. Ethan, call me. You're making a terrible mistake. That woman is manipulating you. When Ethan blocked her number, she started calling his office. When the office blocked her, she started sending handwritten letters, page after page describing my supposed failures. As a mother, as a wife, as a woman. She's isolating you from your family, one letter read. She's dangerous. 2 weeks later, Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table, holding another envelope. Maybe we should let her apologize, he said quietly. For the kids' sake. My chest tightened. Ethan. They miss their grandmother. I stared at him. She locked them in a dark room. He looked away. But she's still family. I leaned forward slowly. If a stranger locked our children in a room, would you ever let them near our kids again? He didn't answer, because he knew the truth. But Pamela wasn't done escalating. 2 days later, she showed up somewhere she should never have been. Ava's ballet studio. And what happened next made it clear. Pamela Harrison was only getting started. 2 days after Ethan suggested we let her apologize, my phone rang at 3:17 in the afternoon. I was folding laundry when the caller ID showed Riverside Ballet Studio. For a split second, my heart stopped. Parents only get calls from schools or studios during the day for 2 reasons. Either your child is hurt or something is wrong. Hello? I answered quickly. Mrs. Hartley? A nervous voice asked. Yes. This is Linda, the front desk manager at Riverside Ballet. I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a situation. My stomach tightened. What kind of situation? There was a pause. Well, a woman named Pamela Harrison is here. The air seemed to vanish from my lungs. She says she's Ava's grandmother. My grip tightened on the phone. What is she doing there? She's trying to sign Ava out early. Ice spread through my chest. She claims there's a family emergency. I was already grabbing my keys. She absolutely does not have permission, I said sharply. Please don't release Ava to her. Don't worry, Linda replied quickly. We haven't. I'm on my way. The entire drive to the studio felt like it lasted 10 seconds and 10 hours at the same time. My mind raced with horrifying possibilities. What if they had believed her? What if Ava had walked out the door with Pamela? What if... I slammed the car door and rushed inside the studio. The lobby was quiet except for raised voices near the front desk. Pamela stood there, perfectly dressed as always. Pearl necklace, cream-colored blazer. She looked like a respectable grandmother, which made the scene even more disturbing. I'm telling you, Pamela said sharply to the studio manager, I have every right to take my granddaughter home. The manager crossed her arms. We require parental authorization. Pamela gave a tight smile. Well, I am family. That's not the same thing. Pamela's voice hardened. Are you seriously suggesting I would kidnap my own grandchild? That's when she noticed me. Her eyes narrowed. Celeste. The room went silent. What are you doing here? She asked. I walked straight up to the desk. My daughter is not leaving with you. Pamela laughed softly. You're being ridiculous. She turned back to the manager. You see what I mean? She's unstable. My jaw clenched. You told them there was an emergency. Pamela tilted her head. Well, there is. She smiled thinly. My son's marriage is falling apart. The manager cleared her throat awkwardly. "I think it's best if you leave, Mrs. Harrison." Pamela didn't move. Instead, she leaned closer to me. "You're turning my grandchildren against me." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." For a moment, I thought she might explode. But Pamela Harrison didn't explode. She adapted. Her smile returned. "Very well." She picked up her purse. "But this isn't over." Then she walked out of the studio like nothing had happened. But the damage was done. Other parents had witnessed the entire confrontation, and their stares followed me as I walked toward Ava's classroom. When Ava saw me through the glass door, she waved happily. She had no idea how close she had come to something terrifying. That night, I told Ethan everything. He sat at the kitchen table in stunned silence. "She tried to take Ava out of ballet?" he asked slowly. "Yes." He rubbed his face. That's insane." I didn't respond, because I wasn't sure he fully understood yet. Pamela wasn't just upset. She was escalating. Over the next few weeks, the harassment continued. Phone calls, emails, letters. Some were angry. Some were emotional. Some were disturbingly calm. One letter simply read, "A good mother would never separate children from their grandmother." Another said, "I hope Ethan realizes what kind of woman he married before it's too late." Then came the stalking. The first time I noticed it was at the grocery store. I was pushing a cart through the produce section when Oliver suddenly pointed. "Mommy, look!" I followed his finger. Pamela stood 2 aisles away, pretending to examine apples. My chest tightened. "Come on," I said quickly. "But it's Grandma," Oliver said. "We're leaving." We walked toward the checkout. But every time I glanced over my shoulder, Pamela was still there, keeping just enough distance to claim innocence, watching us. That night I called the store manager. By sheer luck, the security cameras had captured everything. When Ethan watched the footage later, something inside him finally snapped. His mother followed us through the store for 20 minutes, keeping distance, but never losing sight of the kids. Ethan stared at the screen in disbelief. "She's stalking us." "Yes," I said quietly. The room fell silent. Then Ethan looked at me. "We're getting a restraining order." The next day, we met with Attorney Rodriguez, a family law specialist Carmen recommended. After reviewing my journal and the security footage, she leaned back in her chair. "This is classic escalation behavior," she said. "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. "It means she won't stop." Her voice was calm. "People like Pamela become more dangerous when they lose control." My stomach sank. "So what do we do?" Rodriguez folded her hands. "You file for a restraining order." The paperwork took weeks. Evidence. Statements. Security footage. Every incident documented. But Pamela still had one more move. 2 days before the court hearing, Ethan's phone rang. It was Aunt Patricia. Her voice sounded panicked. "Ethan, I'm worried about your mother." "What do you mean?" "She's not answering her phone." My chest tightened. "With her heart condition." Ethan frowned. "Heart condition?" Patricia hesitated. "Well, she mentioned it recently. We had never heard about any heart condition." But Ethan insisted on checking on her. "I'll go over there," he said. "You stay with the kids." I watched him leave with a knot of dread in my stomach. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice sounded exhausted. It was a setup. My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "She wanted to show me something." "What?" "A journal." I froze. "What kind of journal?" Ethan sighed heavily. "One she's been writing for years." "About what?" "About you." Cold fear crept up my spine. "What does it say?" "According to her, you've been manipulating me since the day we met." I sat down slowly. "She has dates," Ethan continued. "Conversations she claims we had. She's convinced you're some kind of evil mastermind." The room spun slightly. "So she tried to convince you not to testify tomorrow?" "Yes." "And?" There was a pause. Then Ethan said quietly, "I walked out." The next morning, we walked into court, and Pamela Harrison finally faced a judge who saw through her perfectly polished mask. The courtroom felt colder than the rest of the building. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of cold that settles into your chest when you realize everything that's about to happen will permanently change your life. Ethan squeezed my hand as we sat at the petitioner's table. Across the room, Pamela Harrison sat alone. She had dressed for the occasion like she always did. Perfectly pressed navy suit, pearl necklace, silver hair styled into an elegant wave. If someone walked into the courtroom without context, they would probably assume she was the victim. That was Pamela's greatest weapon. She didn't look like the villain in anyone's story. She looked like a dignified grandmother who baked cookies and hosted charity luncheons. The judge entered. Everyone stood. When we sat again, Pamela immediately rose. "I'll be representing myself, Your Honor," she announced confidently. Attorney Rodriguez leaned toward me and whispered softly, "That's actually good for us." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Harrison, this hearing concerns a request for a restraining order due to alleged harassment, stalking, and endangerment of minors." Pamela smiled politely. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Of course she did. When it was her turn, Pamela presented her journal, the same one she had shown Ethan days earlier. Page after page of neatly written entries. "She's been isolating my son from our family," Pamela said sadly. Her voice carried the perfect note of wounded dignity. "I documented everything to protect myself." She flipped through the pages dramatically. Here, for example, 3 years ago, Celeste insisted Ethan skip our Christmas dinner. That wasn't true. Ethan had been traveling for work, but Pamela presented it as if I had manipulated him. She read more entries. Each one twisted, each one turning ordinary moments into sinister conspiracies. By the time she finished speaking, a few people in the courtroom looked uncertain. Pamela sat down with a quiet, confident smile. She believed she had won. Then Attorney Rodriguez stood. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "we also have documentation. And unlike Pamela's carefully rewritten memories, our evidence was real." Rodriguez began with the family reunion incident. Witness statements from multiple relatives describing Pamela barricading the laundry room door. The judge's expression darkened. Then came the ballet studio report. The manager's written testimony describing Pamela attempting to remove Ava under false pretenses. Pamela shifted in her seat. Then Rodriguez played the grocery store security footage. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the video played. Pamela appeared on the screen, following us through the store, aisle after aisle, never approaching, but never leaving. The silence in the courtroom became heavy. When the video ended, the judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Harrison," he said slowly, "did you lock 2 children in a room and barricade the door?" Pamela lifted her chin. "I disciplined them. That wasn't my question. They were being disruptive." The judge's voice hardened. "Did you barricade the door?" Pamela hesitated. "Yes." The word echoed in the courtroom. "And did you attempt to remove your granddaughter from a ballet studio without parental authorization?" "I was trying to protect her." "And did you follow this family through a grocery store?" "I was simply shopping." The judge removed his glasses. "Ma'am?" His voice was firm. "You locked 2 children in a room. You attempted to take a minor without permission. You engaged in behavior that clearly constitutes harassment." Pamela's expression cracked for the first time. "This woman is poisoning my son against me," she insisted, pointing at me. The judge didn't even glance in my direction. Blood relation does not grant someone the right to endanger children. His gavel struck the desk once. The restraining order is granted. The sound seemed to echo through the room. Pamela sat frozen. For the first time since I had met her, she looked powerless. But the story didn't end there. Toxic people rarely accept defeat quietly. Pamela found creative ways to continue the fight. She started a Facebook group called Grandparents Denied. Every day she posted long, emotional messages about how cruel daughters-in-law steal grandchildren. She left fake negative reviews on my small online boutique, claiming I was a scammer. She recruited relatives and friends to message Ethan. "Family is forever," they wrote. "Your mother deserves forgiveness." But there's something about burning bridges. Eventually, you run out of people willing to cross the flames. Pamela's downfall came from her own obsession. While trying to prove she was the victim, she began harassing other parents at Ava's ballet studio. She asked them to sign a petition accusing me of being abusive. What she didn't realize was that one of those parents was a family court judge, and another was married to the district attorney. 2 weeks later, we received a call from Ethan's cousin Dominic. His voice sounded stunned. "Pamela's being charged." "For what?" Ethan asked. "Harassment, stalking, violation of the restraining order." The district attorney was not amused. Pamela represented herself again in court. And once again, her own words betrayed her. Her journal entries revealed a pattern of obsession and escalating behavior. In the end, she avoided jail time, but barely. 6 months probation, mandatory counseling, and strict enforcement of the restraining order. But the real consequence wasn't legal. It was social. Pamela's church distanced itself. Her charity organizations quietly removed her from their boards. Her book club stopped inviting her. Even relatives began keeping their distance. Not because of anything I said, but because they had finally seen the truth. Today, Pamela still lives alone in her pristine Westchester house. Her Facebook group has fewer than 50 members. Most of her sons visit separately now. Never together, never for holidays. She has never met David's newborn daughter. She has never seen Christopher's stepchildren. And she has missed every milestone in Ava and Oliver's lives. Sometimes I wonder if she sits in that perfect, silent house and asks herself the question she spent years avoiding. Was control worth losing everything? But people like Pamela rarely see themselves as the villain in their own story. Ethan and I started couples therapy after everything. It wasn't easy for him to confront a lifetime of manipulation disguised as love. One night, after a session, he said quietly, "I keep wondering how many times she's done this before." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "My father always gave in to keep the peace," Ethan said. "And both of my brother's first marriages ended badly." He exhaled slowly. "Maybe those women weren't the problem." I squeezed his hand. "You didn't know. I almost lost you and the kids because of it." "Almost," I said softly. But he didn't. And today, our home is peaceful again. Ava dances in the living room while Oliver builds elaborate Lego cities on the floor. Our door stays locked. Our boundaries stay firm. Because the most important lesson I learned from all of this is simple. Sometimes protecting your children means walking away from someone who shares their blood. Family should never be an excuse for abuse.